Welcome to the special Labor Day edition of the morning meeting. Thank you all for joining. Sean, Tim, and I eager to tell you what's happening today and to take your questions. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, please raise your electronic hand if you're here on the two-way platform. If you're watching on YouTube, please enjoy. And if you're going to go in the comments section, please adhere to our normal standards. We prefer the presumption of grace, peace, love, and understanding to vituperative negative attacks. All right, so it is Labor Day, and it's a time that the media treats as the traditional unofficial, or sometimes they call it official, kickoff of the presidential campaign. Nothing official about it, but we're going to talk about the disparity here. The Democrats love this holiday, and both Kamala Harris doing two battleground state events, one with Joe Biden today, and her running mates in Minnesota and Wisconsin today. As far as I know, as of this hour, neither Donald Trump nor J.D. Vance are doing anything today. So Harris and the president at 9:15 meet in the Situation Room to talk about the hostage negotiations in the wake of the murder of those 6 hostages, including Hirsch Goldberg Poland. His funeral service is actually scheduled to take place right now, live streamed. Join in progress, or go to your second screen and watch that sad moment. But after she does that, she leaves for Andrews, and then she goes to Michigan for an event at 1:15 Eastern Time, campaign event commemorating Labor Day. She then meets President Biden in Pittsburgh, and they do a 4:45 event in Pittsburgh, and then they both go back separately to D.C. And as I said, J.D. Vance, Trump, as far as we know, not doing anything. Tim Walz is meeting labor leaders in St. Paul this morning, and then 3:00 Eastern addresses Milwaukee's Labor Fest. Doug Emhoff, tireless fundraiser, is raising money in Newport News today. Israel events obviously are a big deal, and foreign policy news dominated the weekend, both on Israel and the Middle East and Afghanistan, which we're going to talk about. But let's start with Labor Day, and a question for both of you, but an emphasis from Sean on the first one, Tim on the second. Sean, how do Republicans approach Labor Day? Why aren't we seeing the Republican ticket out? Is it just labor and labor unions are home field advantage for the Democrats, so Republicans don't embrace it as much?
No, I mean, I think that I'm a little shocked that neither of them out there. I mean, I would expect them to have some kind of event or interview or something. I don't think they're down today. I think they should have public events. So I don't think it has anything. I wouldn't read too much.
I don't know what the difference is between not having public events and being down. I mean, they're obviously never just like in like chronically, frozen in some amber state. I mean,
No. But I mean, you can be doing TV interviews or taping stuff, or I mean, there's a lot.
yeah.
You're gonna. I would be surprised if. Well, anyway,
But just
I don't.
historically, is this a complicated event,
No,
a
I
holiday
mean,
for Republicans?
I mean, I don't mean to, like I did my first campaign 30 years ago this year. I've always used Labor Day as an event to attend parades or go to barbecues or things like that. I don't think that you should read anything into this, to be honest with you, aside from the fact that they don't have anything on their public schedule. I mean, the president on Friday and Saturday did a ton of events. President Trump, that is, he was here in D.C. And so, I mean, I just look. I think part of this is, hey, it's a day where also, I mean, in my conversations with some of them, they felt like you're not going to get a ton of attention. People are doing barbecues and spending time with the family, maybe a last minute trip to the beach or something. I don't see that on our side, we think of it as some major attempt to get out there and greet the voters, though.
All right, Tim, double team with me because I
Yeah.
totally disagree with Sean. Go ahead.
Well, look, and I think on the media front, it is also useful. Yes, you have people out there during the day who are finishing up their vacations with their families, but everybody comes home at the end of the day. They're turning to the short week. There's a chance to get in front of them on television. And look, I think there is an advantage that Democrats can press and do press. To Sean's point, I am a little surprised that Trump and Vance are doing absolutely nothing. But the messaging is much more natural for Democrats around Labor Day, who see them as a key constituency, who champion things like a 4-day work week or labor regulations that protect workers. I think it's a good contrast in this race too, as well, for Harris and Walz. So it makes sense that they're up. But I do kind of agree with Sean. I don't entirely understand why you would cede a free day of media if you're the Trump campaign.
Well, again, I just want to get back to the jargon that we're using. I think when we say that they might not be doing big public events, but it's sort of like when people say that Congress is not in Washington, therefore they're not doing anything. It's a pet peeve of mine because you're not. I mean, he can be taping interviews, they can be
Well,
having staff meetings.
okay, so
Not like they're at the beach.
Follow the lid.
Okay, but to me, the proof will be in the pudding when we watch the network news, which still draws millions of people at 6:30 tonight. Will Trump and Vance be in the maybe they won't be the lead stories because of Israel or something else, but will they be in the packages tonight? If they do some local interviews, maybe, but maybe not. So let's see. All right,
Also has
we'll
to do
talk
with
about.
what they release.
Say again.
There are tactics that you can do to get in the media. Anyway, I'm just saying,
okay. Let's see if they get in. But I anticipate it all being a day of both locally and nationally. I mean, between Biden and between Harris and Walz, they're going to be in the 3 Great Lakes states today, and I bet they get lots of coverage because the press is obsessed with the notion of Labor Day kickoff. Tim, I understand Joe Biden's got some lingering popularity in Pennsylvania, but would you say that if you were working for Kamala Harris, you'd say this is the last day she should be campaigning with Joe Biden, or is this a well you can keep going to? Because the Republicans love it.
Yeah. No, I do think it's a well you can keep going to. I don't think, I think putting him in the state of Pennsylvania, which is, according to most polls, tipping point state, 1/3 of the time, where he has some higher popularity, it is valuable to get him in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Scranton, wherever you want, and to hold rallies with him. I do think there is some big value there. Now, I will note, what's interesting is the way that Harris has consolidated the Democratic base versus how it was under President Biden. We saw like 85% Democratic support under Biden. It's like 98% now under Harris. So that's very consolidated. But there still may be some lingering support that you could consolidate. There are also maybe some independents who view him favorably or who are undecided who may come over. So look, I don't think holding an event with him changes the nature or the dynamic of their relationship in any significant way that voters would completely change their mind on their perspective of Harris. But I do think it's an asset to plant. He's an asset to plant in Pennsylvania in particular to rally and to try to draw some people.
Okay, but let me just, before I let Sean in, it's going to produce video of the two of them yucking it up. It's going to produce video of presumably of her praising Biden and Biden praising her. That can be played not just in Pennsylvania, but can be played across the country. Would you, if you were working for them, would you try to stage manage the event to minimize stuff that could show up in Republican ads, or it doesn't matter?
I tend to think that if the standard is the footage of them on stage, there's already enough footage of them on stage, unless something totally new, novel, wild is said, which I would bet against. I think the risk there is actually pretty low.
Okay, Sean, what do you think?
I feel like this is a game of Clue. President Biden at a Union Hall in Pittsburgh. I mean, if you're going to use them, that's the combo. It's Professor Plum in the library with the candlestick. That's where you use them. You get to check a box. I think that like my take from Democrats is they kind of think of him as like a folk hero now. Like he stepped aside, he did the right thing. I mean, to Tim's point, we got enough footage of the two of them together on issues that I don't think that there's that much that's going to come of anything. So in this case, I mean, if he says something or does something, then it'll get used. But this is probably the way to do it.
What's the over under? How many times they campaigned together?
Outside of Pennsylvania or inside of Pennsylvania?
No. Let's say outside Pennsylvania, how many times they campaigned together the rest of the way? What's the over under? 6. I'll put it at 6. Tim, over under outside Pennsylvania.
That's a very good line.
Yeah, I'm good at setting the line.
I'll say over.
Over. Sean,
I would have put the line at between 2 and 3.
So you say under.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, save the videotape, folks. By election day, we'll have a clear winner. The over under 6, Sean under, Tim over. All right. Again, if you want to get in the conversation here, if you're on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. We'd love some new folks also, along with our returning excellent regulars. Normally we're forward-looking, but the Afghanistan story is now forward-looking because whether the Trump team did this on purpose or not, they've now baited the Harris campaign into a long-running discussion about America's withdrawal from Afghanistan. And today, the Washington Post and New York Times had stories Trump on the defensive, Trump offending veterans, but rather Harris was baited into now this long-running debate. and you've got veterans' families, the Gold Star families criticizing Vice President Harris, and the Harris campaign no longer commenting on this story. So, Sean, where is this going? Is this now going to peter out, or is this something that can continue to drive what the Trump campaign wants to drive, which is they want to paint Harris as, amongst other things, they want to paint Harris weak, failed, and too liberal. This gets at least too weak and failed.
Yeah. I would say in my conversations, I don't think it was planned. I think they did execute on it once they realized they had something. This was never intended to be anything more than a visit, and potentially a future talking point about the contrast between Trump and how he handled foreign events. It has fallen into their lap. I think that from a political standpoint, it's always difficult talking about an issue like this in crass political terms, but that's the nature of what we do at this point in the race. They've compiled all the video last night that they put out, which is a compilation of the Gold Star families explaining why they wanted to happen what they did, and how they contrast that with Trump, with Harris, has been phenomenal. It reminds people of the botched withdrawal. It reminds people that she never actually took the time to call. It's a huge contrast with Trump's foreign policy versus hers. I give how they handled this politically was actually probably the best that they've handled any issue that's been handled to them since she's been in the race. On a media standpoint, real quick, I will tell you, it is amazing to me that no one in the media, in the mainstream left-wing legacy media, has cared about Gold Star families until they tried to use this against Trump. It's clearly backfired. Kristen Welker yesterday having to apologize for lying about about being at the dignified transfer at Dover. There's been no discussion about these Gold Star families, their concerns, the lack of calls or interest from the Biden administration until this incident occurred. And I think, frankly, that is despicable, but I'll leave it at that.
All right. I don't think she lied. I think they just made a
Lied,
mistake.
Mark.
They did. Well,
she
they
lied.
corrected. They corrected.
No. They didn't, Mark, with all due respect, they didn't correct it. They wrote, we inadvertently. This is not, that was the biggest weasel of an apology I've ever seen.
Sean, you know that I'm not reluctant to criticize my colleagues in the press. She didn't lie. It's a silly lie because it's easily proven false. They just made a mistake, and they did apologize for it. But the rest of what you said, I don't take issue with. Tim, in responding to Sean, address the question of, was it smart for Vice President Harris to put out an extended statement on this matter and take the bait, whereas, for instance, on the race stuff, she didn't take the bait?
Well, look, I think on this, because it started to become a multi-day story, because there were questions about what happened at Arlington National Cemetery, whether or not an official was pushed, and then the Trump campaign accusing that person of having a mental breakdown. It became one of these multi-day stories focused on what was happening at the cemetery. So I do think it was wise that she ended up.
Let me stop you. I understand it was a multi-day story, but why does she have to put out a statement? Why not just a staffer put out a statement?
Well,
because this is exactly what the Trump campaign wants. They want Trump to do something provocative, whether it was on purpose or not. They want Harris to respond, like on the race stuff. He went to the black journalist thing in order to be provocative, to get her to talk about race. She didn't fall for it in the CNN interview, but she seemed to fall for it here by putting out this long statement.
I think it is a slightly different situation. I think when you're at Arlington National Cemetery, if you're at Arlington National Cemetery, if you're talking about veterans, I think in this circumstance, it because of the nature of the issue, it makes sense for her to push a statement out. I will just say, what I think is interesting about this is one, depending on how you are reading about this, I think some media is focused on what happened at Arlington National Cemetery at Plot 60 and what happened with the Trump campaign. Some media is framing it around Afghanistan in general. So it is a little bit of like media silo and how you do consume news. But I also want to say there's real very quickly, I do think for the Harris campaign, and I don't know how this gets operationalized, I do think there is a lack of pushback that's happening on how Trump negotiated the Doha agreement and everything that happened there with the earlier troop drawdown with 5,000, fighters being released with special visas, the State Department being shut down to process them. I do think that's a valuable conversation not happening right now.
One more quick point on this. I think, Mark, the point that you're touching on is right. The media was piling on Trump. He was taking a ton of incoming on how he had handled it, blah, 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 blah. And then she proactively put out a statement that revived the story. That was, to me, that was a politically stupid move. She should have just shut up and let the press do the work for her.
Right. Not just in this case, but in any case where Trump's trying to bait her. Now, again, they didn't do this, they claim, on purpose. But now, if she engages on this, she's engaging with the Gold Star families who put out these compelling videos, and that's not a fight she can win. Tim, you're right. If this were a debate at the Council on Foreign Relations, the history of Trump's role would be germane, and maybe it's a fight they should worth having. But every day they're talking about the Afghanistan withdrawal is a day that they're on Trump's terrain. And again, it's not just the issue. It's they want her to be three things. They want her to be weak, failed, and liberal. And this is all three.
I will say, and not to like get into what we might be talking about next, but like when you are talking about the week before a debate, right? The topics in the news media or in the news cycle in that week leading up to the debate are important because they tend to frame the questions around the debate. So just to your point of like, are we going to have a conversation about Afghanistan that might break through, where she might be able to make those points? It's possible that this now becomes a question or a series of questions in the debate, or it's elevated more than it was previously, based on
right now if the debate were today, and it's not that far away, there'd be questions about Israel and Afghanistan. And I'm not sure that those would be the favorite topics of Vice President Harris.
Yeah.
Maybe they would be. Megan, thank you for joining us. Please tell us what's on your mind.
First of all, I was not expecting a Zoom, so I'm a little casual, but I really want to say something.
You're not wearing a baseball cap from Japan.
I'm not. I'm wearing a Halloween shirt. So anyway.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Thank you for joining.
So I just wanted to ask Tim and Sean and you a question. I do a lot of advocacy work in the pro-Israel space, and I have for years. Like maybe 6 or 7 years at this point. And obviously the news of the hostages being killed was, it feels like October 7th a little bit. Again, it's been very emotional for friends of mine, people in this space. I had a very hard time hearing about it. I woke up crying, and to see Governor Walz's reaction at the Minnesota State Fair being asked about it, where he not only blows off the journalist, but seems callous and cavalier. As I have said many times on this Zoom and with other people on your other calls, I'm not buying his oh shucks, I'm the everyman. There is no compassion. There is no, even if he's anti-Israel and he's from the river to the sea, which I suspect he is given his affection for Ilhan Omar. I was shocked and appalled by his reaction, and it's getting a lot of attention in my pro-Israel circles, lot and a lot of chats. And I just want to know if you think it matters, if it's just my bubble, but you cannot be vice president if you don't have compassion for an American hostage being shot by a terrorist organization. And I just was really, quite frankly, repulsed by his reaction.
Yeah, Megan, great topic. Tim, let me just say, neither the person who says she wants to be commander in chief nor the person who says he wants to be a heartbeat away from the presidency has responded on camera to the killing of an American. I think Vice President will do it today. I'd be stunned if she didn't. But I don't know if you saw the Waltz footage from the fair, but it's not a great look. If you were advising the campaign, should they both have spoken out on camera yesterday in a dignified setting or not?
I think they could have. I think they put out a statement. I think that is fine. Now, do they talk about it today? That's another question. I do think I saw the Waltz video. I think it is hard to come at him from that perspective, if you're not partisan, or if you're not coming at him from a partisan perspective, because he's at the fair. It's unclear if he heard the question. He's handing out ice cream. He didn't answer any other questions from reporters in that setting. The vice president, in her official capacity, put out a statement about it. I just don't read that video or that situation.
But you don't think they should be on camera talking about the death of an American?
They might be. I think it is wise to make a statement. I think they chose a paper statement. I think they might make an on-camera statement. We'll see.
Sean Spicer, another issue on which
I would
have a different point of view.
Look, I think that politically speaking, to Megan's question, the people who care about this, it matters to the people who really care about this issue. And I mean that for a lot of folks, anyway, I get the question is, yes, it does matter. I think it really impacts probably the people who care about it the most weren't probably Walz Harris people in the first place. So I don't see it moving the needle. That being said, to the last piece of this, I would be shocked if she doesn't come out of the Situation Room and approaching either the helicopter or to make a comment that I just got briefed. Here's our status. Here's what we're going on. So yeah, that's I think it would, if she goes 2 days now without saying anything, that would be shocking.
Yeah. Warren, thank you for joining. Remind folks who you are, where you are, who you're supporting, and tell us what's on your mind.
Yes, I'm in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. I came from Florida, spent some time there and vote in Florida. I'm for Harris. James Carville, whom I respect, has now said that Florida is in play. And the main issue that he cited was soaring property insurance rates as a key driver there. Comments on that?
I'll dispatch this quickly. The minute the Harris campaign spends $1 on broadcast television in Florida, we're willing to discuss whether it's in play. But until they do, it's definitely not in play. Anybody want to dissent from that?
No, I will say, as a side note, I found it interesting the second gentleman's in Virginia today. Two things that matter, time and money. I agree with you, Mark. The big one is money, but the time is the other one, and why he's in Virginia.
I got a note today from someone saying Harris is on TV in Virginia, which I'm not sure is true, but I want to look into that. Warren, thank you for joining, for the question. Appreciate it. Michael, please come in. Remind folks again where you are, who you're supporting, and tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, Michael Kearns. I'm a refugee from New York, living in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm a reluctant Trump supporter at this point. Who'd
you vote for in 16 and 20?
In 16, Trump. I'm an accidental voter for Trump in 20. I was voting along the Republican line, and I accidentally voted for Trump. I meant to vote for Biden.
Okay. And why are you voting for Trump this time if you're reluctant?
Because Biden ran on the centrist, and then he went so far left. And now I find myself with Harris. Is this one of those where she's doing the same thing that he did, which is run down the middle, and then she's going to pull all the way to the left? And I wonder, and I guess my question is, I kind of feel like this is a game of Jenga where she is not doing any interviews. And does that eventually catch up to her? Because that creates a void that gives Trump the advantage to fill in. Now, I understand my understanding is, according to Newsweek, she didn't get the bump from the convention that they expected. So is this the turning point where her lack of doing any media catches up to her?
Michael, do you live in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district?
No, I live in a hardcore Republican area. That's the 2nd district is more towards Old Market, down by the center of the city.
Got it. All right, Tim, what do you say to Michael?
Well, I would say, this idea that you create a vacuum by not doing interviews, I think is not necessarily, there's like a choice there where you do the interviews or you don't, you have a vacuum or you don't. There's a bunch of ways to get media to pick up what you're doing, rallies, narrative, fundraising, a whole bunch of other things. So I do think she will do another interview. I feel like for some reason, maybe because it's the long Labor Day weekend, I feel like that moment has like broken for us where we keep talking about whether she's going to do another interview, but I guess we're back to it. I think she will do another interview. I don't know that she'll do one before the debate. I don't know that it matters that much. And I guess
she could do local TV in Michigan or Pennsylvania. That is a good point.
That is one thing I was thinking about is I think
watch for that.
From now until election day, I think you were going to see, if they're doing it intelligently, I think candidates will do much more local television.
If you do local TV, they're short. The questions aren't as aggressive, and you say we're talking to the people in the battleground states. We don't need to talk to national.
You're talking to folks who watch their local news and those prime real estate.
I don't know why they haven't started doing that. Sean Spicer.
I would just say I think that would be a smart strategy. We'll see if that happens. One of the things that happened under Biden, though, is that everybody in the punditry class kept saying they need to get him out more. They need to get him out more, as if those people didn't know that, right? They're smart people around Biden. They knew what they could be doing. They knew that there were certain limitations to what he could do. My argument would be, if you're a staffer for Harris, they're not dumb. They're smart political operatives. And I think the question is, after the Dana Bash thing, they're going, how much time, what's the return on investment for doing an event, an interview versus a scripted event where, to Tim's point, they're going to cover it. They're going to say she was here today, she said the following, and show their clip. Much lower risk. And so as much as I would like to see her do more interviews, I think from a political operative standpoint, I get why they're doing what they're doing.
Michael, how'd you find two-way?
It came up on my YouTube feed, and I absolutely love this. Absolutely love it.
Do you love it enough to FedEx us some Runzas?
Oh my God, you know about Runza?
Yeah, if you FedEx us some, we'll be really happy. We'll let you ask any question you want. Thank you for joining, Michael. Come back often. Appreciate it. All right, Sean, come on in, please. Tell everybody who doesn't know where you're from, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I'm Sean. I'm in North Georgia, and I am a Christian, so I'm voting against the Democratic Party. It's really not about the candidate so much for me. It's primarily about party. I want to follow up on Michael's question, and I have a question primarily for Sean. Do you think, or for anybody, but do you think we could be witnessing the beginning of the end of the Democratic Party? And here's why I ask that, because I hear people say that the Democratic Party is moving right. And certainly the Republican Party, I think, is moving left. But I don't see that that's the case, that the Democratic Party is moving right. I think what we see is that there's a greater divergence between the parties. The Democratic Party is moving further left, but they are espousing right-leaning policies, and they're pretending to be centrist when in reality they're actually shifting further left. And there's such a huge divide happening now in our culture. I just don't see that this is sustainable.
Sean, thank you.
Sean, can I ask, among your peer group and neighbors, et cetera, what percentage of the people do you think like you?
In what way? Is about the end of the Democratic Party?
That would say that the statement that you just made is accurate.
About the end of the Democratic Party, probably I don't hear anybody saying that. But as far as the Democratic Party moving left, yes, absolutely. It's obvious. It's obvious that the Democratic Party is moving further left. It's becoming more extreme.
Wait, no. I'm just trying to get it. I think one of the things that's interesting, I mean, in fact, I would argue that their party is probably on the ascent. I mean, when you think about the domination that they have over so many institutions. I mean, I asked the question about where you live because I think a lot of it is, I live here in Northern Virginia. We're people who are of the right are an extinct species. And so I think some of it has to do with where you live and the surroundings, the neighbors, the people that you are surrounded by that shape how you think.
So I would agree with you. The right is becoming an extinct species. So but I think that the Democrats are also forcing themselves to become extinct. So I wondered if there's not a new party that's going to emerge.
Yeah.
From
so
this.
Let me just answer your question. I think that Republicans and conservatives need to understand. This is a much longer discussion than what we can do right now, but I would just say that I think part of what has to happen is that there's an understanding of what's really at stake. And I think that I give the left a lot of credit for how they develop issues and policies, and there's a much longer view than I think some of the short-term battles that are fought on the right. But it's an interesting question that you're asking, and I would love more time to explore that. So you can always feel free to check out my show at 6:00 every night on YouTube.
We'll do.
Tim?
Hey, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Tim?
Just a question for you as you've presented your background, and I'm just always curious about this question. So you are voting against the Democratic Party. Do you reflect on, care about, to what degree do you care about the character of Donald Trump and how he aligns with your values?
So that's why I said this is not about a person. Like, look, does Donald Trump do things that I'm happy with? Absolutely. Does he say things I wish he wouldn't say? Absolutely. But we have to move beyond Donald Trump is he's the candidate for the party. The time to choose the candidates is in the primary. So we're beyond that now. So we have a choice between two parties. Here's a good example for you. Let's say Tulsi Gabbard, and I don't want to take up too much time, so I apologize. But Tulsi Gabbard, she would be a phenomenal president. If she ran Republican, I would be happy to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. If she ran Democrat, I could not vote for Tulsi Gabbard. she would be a phenomenal candidate. But this is not about the candidate. This is about the party and the platform.
Sean, thank you. I'm just cutting you off because we're at time, but thank you for that. And thanks for everybody who asked questions today. Tomorrow, we'll be back. We'll be back all week here at our regular time, 9 Eastern time for the morning meeting. Tomorrow night at 7 Eastern, Lauren Leader is doing a Majority Rules episode here on Two-Way about covering this campaign. So please tune in for that. My PM shows this week are TBD. If you're looking for me later today, you'll find me in Central Park. So stop by and say hi. Bring a runza. No show tonight, but the rest of the week I will have PM shows, but we're figuring out exactly how we want to time those based on the schedules of the event. So thank you for joining. We'll see you again tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. The morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern. See you then.